All the shots that I'm gonna use for this class are taken from this short movie called Tears of Steel. You can download all the raw material for free on their website. Those are the perfect footage to test your green screen skills because they are totally uncompressed. Like usual, I will put the links in the description. First of all, we're gonna talk about how to remove those tracking markers that you might find in some green screen footage. In this example, we have a lot of them. As you can see, we have a little camera move and the trackers go behind the actor as he walks. Usually, we don't need to remove all of them. We just need to remove the ones that surround the parts that we're gonna keep. In this shot, that means the ones that are close to the actor, like those one here and here. But because this is just for training, I won't take care about what I've just said. Today I will show you 3 different methods to remove those trackers. I won't say that one is better than another because it depends on the situation and your preferences. With this shot, for example, we can use the 3 of them at the same time. The first one is the easiest and the one that you might already know. It's the clone from the Roto paint. Press P on your keyboard to create a new Roto paint node. We are going to remove this marker here. Click on the clone tool. You can change the size by pressing Shift, click and dragging the mouse, and Control, click and dragging the mouse to select the area you're gonna keep for the cloning. Now we can just paint the tracker. The last thing, we need to set the lifetime. Come here and select all frames. You can also come here in the lifetime tab and select all frames. It was here in single frames and you can select all frames. Now we can check the result by pressing play. As you can see, the clone doesn't follow the movement of the tracker. So we're gonna need to track it and then apply this tracking to the clone. I have already tracked this marker. As you can see here, it's perfectly stable. That means that the track is good. There is something important to do when you do a tracking is to set the reference frame. As you can see here, we are at frame 75 and the reference frame is set at 10. Because of that, our values here for the translate X are not at 0. This may cause some issues later, so that's why it's important to put those values at 0. And this is exactly what the reference frame does. For example, if I set my reference frame to the current one, you'll see that all the values are now 0. So keep in mind that is important to do. I'll put it back at 10. Now let's see how we can apply this tracking in a clean way. To open a floating window, press Ctrl and double-click on the node. In the properties of the Roto Paint node, we have a Transform tab. So the idea is to link the value of the translate from the tracker to the value of the translate from the clone. But what would be better is to first create a folder by clicking on the plus here. And instead of linking the values with the clone itself, we're gonna link the values with the folder. This way, if we need to add other clones, we won't need to link them with the tracker again and again. We just need to put them in the folder and that's it. Here we're gonna link the values of the translate and the ones from the center. For that, press Ctrl, click and drag the values from the tracker to the Roto Paint. Do the same for the center. Ctrl, click and drag the values. Now we have this green arrow that appeared. That means that the 2 nodes are connected. The last thing to do is to put the clone in the folder and see what happened. As you can see, now the clone is following the tracker. If you open the Roto Paint, select the clone with the arrow tool selected, you can see here the line that represents this clone. So now if we play, you can perfectly see that it's following the tracking. Earlier I said that it's important to set the reference frame because the value is at 0. Let me show you what would happen if I change the value of this reference frame. Let's say that the reference frame is 75. Now the value of the translate X is not 0 anymore. So, as you can see, now the position of the clone has shifted. If I play, You see that it's still following the tracker, but it has an offset. And this is because when we first created our clone, we created at frame 10. So in order to avoid this shift, it's important to set our reference frame from the tracker at the same frame we created the clone. You don't have to create a tracker for each marker. It depends on the situation. In this case, for example, I don't think I need to put a tracker for each marker. 1 or 2 would be enough. For example here, let's paint this marker using the same tracking. Open the Roto Paint. Don't forget to be at the correct frame. The reference frame here is set at 10. And paint the marker. Set the lifetime to all and put the clone in the folder. Now let's see if it's following. Click here for a better view. Select the clone number 2 and here you can see it. Press play and as you can see, it follows the tracking. This was the first method. Personally, it's not my favorite one. I have a little preference for the one I'm gonna show you next. Before we continue, I've just renamed the tracking folder. I call it tracker1 like the tracker it's linked with. I've also created a new folder without any tracking information just to group my clones. Like this we can keep a clean and organized structure. For this second method, we're gonna use the shapes. But before doing anything, let me hide the clones by clicking on the eye. So first of all, we're gonna draw a shape around this marker. An ellipse will be fine. At the moment, the source is set to color. This is why it's outputting a white shape. What we need is to change this source. But before we go any further, let me explain how this works. When you create a Roto Paint node, you just have a background input and a mask input. If you plug this background input to something, as you can see, a little arrow appears here. This is the background 1. You can plug it and another arrow appears. This one is the background 2. You can do it again and here you have the background 3. Here what we are seeing in our viewer, it's what is plugged in the background input. Let's draw a shape. Once again, the source is set to color. But now if we check the list, you can see that we have the background 1, 2 and 3. Those are the inputs that we have here. In the node properties, you also have a clone tab. At the moment, everything is grayed out. This is because our source is set to color. Now if I change it to background, as you can see, we can access it. Also, the shape is not outputting a white color anymore. Now what we are seeing in the rectangle is the image plugged in the background input. And because this and this is the same, we don't see any difference at the moment. But let's see what happens if I change the value of the translate here. Let's put 200. What happened is exactly the same as if I have done this. Move the image with the transform, mask it, and then merge it over. As you can see, it's the exact same image, and everything has happened in only one node. Now it's not difficult to understand what's gonna happen if we change the source. Let me quickly draw 3 other shapes. This rectangle, I'm gonna put background 1. This one I'm gonna put background 2, and this one I'm gonna put background 3. I forgot to do something. As you can see here, my image has a format of 1920 by 1012. But the 3 other images have a format of 4K. So I need to reformat each image so it can match this one. Because in my settings I've already set the correct format, here I don't have to change anything. Like this is gonna be easier to see what's happening. Now if we take a look at the background 1, what we have done is isolate this part and put it over the final image. You see? Here. Same thing for the background 2. We isolate this part. And the background 3. Here. And now if we want to move one of those images here, we just have to go to the Clone tab in the Roto Paint. Here. Let's say, for example, that in the background 1, I want that his face appears here. So what I need to do is select the right rectangle, it's this one, go to the Clone tab. We can move the center by pressing Ctrl, click and dragging it. Now we can easily move the image here. And the result is this. And if it's necessary, we can adjust it the way we like, by moving the image or moving the mask. Of course, we can do the exact same thing with the others. Here, for example, I can move the center and move the image. Here the same, move the center and move the image. And I also can move the mask. There is one last option we didn't talk about. This option is the foreground. It works in the same way as what we have seen, but it has no input. This is because with this option, we manipulate the final image that we are looking at this moment. Let me show you by creating a new shape. I'm gonna do an ellipse, change the source to foreground, and go in the Clone tab. Now I'm gonna move the image and see what happens. Here I'm moving the final image. So that means that if I make any changes here, it's gonna update there. If I take this rectangle and move the image, you see, it updates here. Same if I change the shape. So the foreground option is useful when you want to clone an already cloned image. So now that we know how the shape works, let me take care of this tracking marker. So here what I need is the background. Now in the Clone tab, I'm gonna move it. My center is here. I can move it this way. And because we have already set our trackers, I can move this ellipse into the tracking folder. And let's see the result. I don't know if you can see it with the compression, but here when I move the image, I lost definition in the grain. This is because of the filtering, and you can fix it by coming here and change the filtering. You can put Riffman, for example, and uncheck the round to pixel. This might fix this problem, but in my methodology, this is not a big issue because usually I degrain the image before I remove the trackers, so the grain won't be a problem. What I like in this method in comparison with the clones is that I can draw any shape I like, and if it's necessary, it's way easier to animate them. Let me show you with another tracker. Here, for example, I can draw the same shape of the tracker. In some situation, this can be really useful. Let me change the source to background, readjust the mask, and then move the image with the Clone tab. And because the shape is already in the tracking folder, we should be able to play and everything should be done. If you feel that you have some hard edges, there is a way to fix it. Let me first exaggerate a little bit the problem so it's easier to show you. I'm gonna modify a little bit my shape. Now we want to fix that. You can do it in the Shape tab. Here you can play with the feather and the feather fall off options. To see better how it works, let me put the source on color. If I increase the feather, as you can see, it grows the shape. And if I play with the feather fall off, it blurs the edges. I can reset the value by control clicking on the slider. Now I put back to background and I can fix my problem. Now it's done. I prefer the second method because it works the same way as the clones, but it's easier to control. With those two methods, you can already handle almost all the situations. But I'm sure that you're gonna like the third one. Here what we're gonna do is to create an alpha matte of the trackers using the RGB channels. If I press R, G or B on my keyboard, I can see the red, the green and the blue channel. You may have noticed that our trackers are clearly visible in the red channel. So now the idea is to use this channel to create an alpha matte. And for that we're gonna use the keyer. By default, the keyer takes the luminance of the RGB image and it outputs the result in the alpha. So this is what we get. But we have seen that it's only in the red channel that we clearly see the trackers. So we're gonna change the operation and put red keyer. Like this, now we have the red channel in the alpha. So now what we want is a clean black and white image to isolate the trackers. For that we just need to crush the black and whites until we are happy with the result. Like this should be fine. Like I've said, the goal here is to isolate the tracker, so we don't want to keep all of this and also this. To remove those parts, we're gonna need to do a little bit of Roto. But because I'm lazy, I don't want to do too much extra work. So before doing anything, let's analyze our image first. Here, the movement of the character is not very complex, so we're just gonna need to do a simple planar tracking and then create a garbage mask. This will be way enough. Here I have already done my tracking. If you have access to a software like Mocha Pro, I recommend you to use it. In my opinion, it's easier to use and more efficient. But here, because I don't have access to it, I used the Nuke planar tracker. If we check the alpha channel after the planar tracker, we can see that we have created an alpha matte. But I don't like to work this way. Usually I prefer to extract the tracking and use it into Roto shapes like we did previously. The reason for that is because like this I can create whatever the shape I like in my Roto node, move them or animate them without messing with my original track. Before doing anything else, I'm just gonna rename this track. If we want to link the track like we did previously, we're gonna face a little problem. If we go in the Transform tab here, we see that we don't have any information, neither for the folder or the shape. In the Planar Tracker, we need to go in the Tracking tab. Here, once again, we don't have what we are looking for, the translate values. Because it's a planar tracker and not a simple point tracker, we have corner pin points instead. Here, the tracking values are stored in the folder. Here. To extract the tracking values, we're gonna need first to export a corner pin by clicking here on Create. But once again, if we open the corner pin node, we don't have any Transform tab here, neither we have Translate values. Let's take a look at the Roto node and see if we can find something useful. Press O on your keyboard to create a new Roto node. If we take a closer look to the Transform tab, we see that we have an extra matrix option here. You can open it by clicking on the little triangle. Cool thing is that we also have an extra matrix in the corner pin. So the solution will be to link or copy the values from the extra matrix of the corner pin to the extra matrix of the Roto. But at this stage, all the animated values are still in the corner pin point and not in the extra matrix, as you can see. So we need to find a way to convert these values into extra matrix values. Fortunately, I have found this script from Egbert Rachel called Animated Corner Pin to Matrix. You will find it on Nukepedia, and I will put the link in the description. It's very easy to use. Select the corner pin and then run the script. Put the frame range and click OK. it creates a new corner pin, but this time all the values are in the extra matrix. If we compare both, you can see the difference. This is the old corner pin, and this is the new one. Now with this, we're gonna be able to link the track with the Roto. Usually when I use corner pins, I prefer to copy-paste the values instead of linking them. So I'm gonna click here and select Copy Animation. Now in my Roto node, I'm gonna create a new folder. And with the folder selected, I'm gonna paste the value. The last thing I'm gonna do is to rename the folder with the same name I've called the tracker. Here it was body track. What I like doing it this way is that now I can draw multiple shapes, animate them separately. As soon as they are in this folder, they're gonna follow the track. Let's do it right now. I can draw half the shape here, and I can do the other half with another shape. As soon as they are both in this folder, they're gonna follow the track. And like I said, I can also animate them. They're gonna still follow the track. Let me show you. See? Now I'm gonna import the other track and redo my shape so I have a correct garbage math. Because we have copied and not linked the tracking information, we don't need to keep the nodes, so we can delete them. Now that our garbage mask is done, we can use it to remove the unwanted part from our alpha. To keep only our garbage mask, or you can click on Replace, or simply disconnect the Roto. To remove the unwanted parts, I'm gonna use a channel merge with a stencil operation. Let's see how does it look. As you can see now, we have removed the unwanted parts. Let's compare before and after. I still need to remove those two balls here. These ones, I'm gonna do it manually. Before, I'm gonna create a new folder here so I can separate the tracked masked from the manual ones. I'm gonna start with the left ball. I draw my shape, and here I have the auto key that is activated. So it has created here a first keyframe. Now I go at the end, I move my mask, and I have a second keyframe. I already have an animation. Now if I press Ctrl and the left or right arrow, my timeline will be in the middle of the two keyframes. This is really helpful when we want to correct the animation. So let me finish this one and do the other ball. I didn't mention that if you want to jump from one keyframe to another one, press Alt and the left or right arrows, like this. Alright, this is it. Let's see the final result. As you can see, we have removed all the unwanted part and kept only the tracking markers. This part here at this moment is not a big deal, so we can leave it. Now that our alpha matte is ready, it's time to remove those trackers. First of all, we're gonna invert the alpha. So here, create an invert node and put in the channel alpha. If we take a look, now our alpha should look like that. We need to pre-move the image. And now, as you can see, we made holes where we have the tracking markers. If necessary, we can adjust our alpha by moving the slider in the keyer or by using an erode. Like this. At the moment, I don't think we need one. If we go a little bit closer, we see that our image looks like it's filtered, like if it's anti-aliased. We're gonna have a better result if we can remove this filtering. For that, we're gonna use a clamp node. Put the clamp before the pre-molt. And here, select alpha as the channels. Now uncheck the minimum and check the max clamp too. And at the end, put a value of 0 to the maximum. And there you go. As you can see, we're gonna need to adjust a little bit our alpha. We're gonna do it by using the keyer and an erode at the same time. It looks okay, but if it's necessary, we can still fix it later. Now what we need to do is to extend the edges to fill those gaps. I'm gonna show you two methods. One with only the original nodes from Nuke and one with an external gizmo. First, create a blur after the pre-molt. You need to put the channels on RGBA. Then put an unpremult after the blur. Now you can change the size of the blur until it fills the gaps. As you can see now, I have my whole image that is blurred. This is the little problem with this method. If I disable the blur, you will see it better. See? One solution to fix that is to take the alpha before we have inverted it, copy it after the pre-molt and re-pre-molt the result. Create a copy node, plug it here and there. Now create a pre-molt and this is the result. So now we have all these little tracking markers that we can patch over our image here. For that, we're gonna simply merge it over. And there you go. For the second method, I'm gonna use this gizmo called Edge Extend made by Johannes Massans. It is, in my opinion, by far the best Edge Extend tool I've found on Nuke. And you already know, you will find the link in the description. This time it's gonna be way easier. Just call the gizmo, Edge Extend, plug it after the pre-molt, and here you just have to increase the value. And that's it. As you can see, this time I don't have any issues with blurring the image. This is why I prefer to use this gizmo, because the job is perfect and it goes way faster. As you can see, we have removed almost all the trackers with a little effort. The one remaining can be fixed with a Roto paint. Let me quickly show you how we can do it. Here we have this tracker that goes behind our character. Let's see on which frame it is visible. It starts on 45 and goes until 48. The easiest way to fix that is to use a Roto paint with the shapes. So create a Roto paint, goes to a frame that we can see the marker, and then create a shape. Change the source to background and adjust the shape. What we're gonna do is to clone what's here to put it here. So that means that we're gonna need to follow the arm. Let's animate the shape. It's gonna be easier if we activate the Auto key. And be sure to create the first keyframe. Now we can animate. Now go to the Clone tab and move the image to cover the tracker. If you want to be more precise, you can uncheck this round to pixel option. And if it's necessary, you can also change the filter. Here I'm gonna leave it like that. If you can see, we can still feel my mask here. So we can fix that by feathering the point, pressing Ctrl, click and drag. Now I have a little problem. Because I had the Auto key turned on and because I have created other keys, Nuke has created a keyframe for this feather. That means that I won't have the mask feathered in the other keyframe. Take a look. This is something annoying that happens all the time. Fortunately, there is a way to fix that. But first, let me undo everything. Imagine that you have done a long animation with a lot of keyframes. And now you want to add a little change to your shape, like beveling some point or adding a feather. If you do it the regular way, you're gonna have to change all your keyframe and this is gonna be a real nightmare. But in Nuke, you have this little option called the ripple. If you click on it, you're gonna have a red rectangle around your viewer. Now you can make your change and you don't have to take care of the other keyframes. Let's redo this feather. Now if I check the other keyframe, as you can see, it keeps the feather. At the end, don't forget to disable the ripple. Now let's see if I manage to remove the tracking marker. I think I need to make some improvement, especially here, but for now it's gonna be okay. Before finishing, don't forget to set the lifetime for this shape. Come here in the lifetime tab, set frame range, and we set from 45 to 48. Now when we're gonna play, before frame 45 and after frame 48, we won't see the patch. Let's see how it does look. I'm gonna set it from 40 to 50. This was before. We can clearly see the tracking marker here. And after. I think it's pretty okay. I have finished to clean all the trackers and this is the final result. This method is by far my favorite one. Unfortunately, it doesn't work every time. If the trackers are not very visible in one channel, then it's very difficult to extract them and create an alpha. That's why there is not a miracle technique that you can use in every situation. But with what I've shown you, I'm pretty sure that now you're gonna be able to face every problems. If you want more information, you can take a look at this great course from FX PhD. It's called Advanced Nuke and Digital Environment and it's taught by Eran Dinur. In this course, he shows really nice technique about how to paint trackers, like how to deal with trackers that goes behind hairs. You can also take a look at this written tutorial on Nukepedia. In this one, he is talking about how to remove trackers by mixing channels. Like usual, I will leave the links in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Just before leaving you, I would like to give you an information. This course is 100% free and I'm not paid for it. I really made it with the desire to share knowledge with you. But if you like to reward or support the job I've done, you can give me a tip by following the PayPal link in the description. Once again, thank you very much and see you soon.